Bacha, Hosh Omadid, and welcome to this Tuesday stream of Las Plumas Simur. My name is Plumas, and I'm going to be with you today. We are going to be reading some Persian literature, and yes, as you see, the streaming day had to change. Life happens. I mean, nothing I can do about it. It was either changing the day or not having a stream at all. So I prefer changing it. And now our English streams will happen on Monday at 6 p.m. GM time. And everything else stays the same, basically, pretty much. But now that's the only change. Our English stream will happen on Tuesday. And I'm actually quite happy I could manage to reschedule everything up because I just don't want to give them up. I don't want to give the English streams up because they entertain me. I enjoy them so much. And so, welcome, Hosh Omadin, to everybody. I'm very happy. I'm very excited because today is actually on the eve of this Tuesday, the eve towards the next Wednesday. We celebrate, the people who celebrate Nowruz celebrate Shāh-nāmeh Suri. And that's a really beautiful night, and I'm excited to celebrate it. And that marks the last Wednesday to Nowruz, which is a Persian New Year, and I'm actually very excited for it because I think Nowruz is my favorite festivity in all the entire calendar. Which calendar? All of them. Chinese New Year, European Moon Year, New Year, the moon cycle, and anything. My favorite festivity is still Nowruz, which is the Persian New Year. And yes, I celebrate it at home. I have my table almost ready. Not quite yet. There's some elements, bits and bobs I need to add, but all in all, I'm happy. The only thing is that my greens, my subset, are not growing as fast as I thought they would. I should have started growing them like the beginning of March for me to be on time, but we'll see how they can perform in these 5 days. I am hopeful. I'm hopeful. I want to be hopeful. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And today we are gonna resume our reading of the book. Hello, Serapis. How are you, sis? I'm good. I'm good. I'm happy that Nowruz is coming. Very happy that Nowruz is coming. How are you? How are classes? How's life? Also, we don't have tea today because I drank a very big mug before coming to the stream, so I don't need more caffeine, if you understand what I mean. So yeah, today we're gonna resume our reading of the Book of Kings. I'm very excited because we already know about Rash, and today, actually, what do we have today? Oops, the music's still playing. Wait. What we have today is conflict. Remember, we're in the middle of war, basically. These are quite agitated chapters. This is there's a lot of wars coming and going between Iran and Turan, and we are in the middle of one at the minute. And I don't know if you remember, but last time we met Rash, which is Rostam's horse. We met the stallion. We met the best friend and the companion of Rostam, which is like, the biggest hero inside of the Shāh-nāmeh. And now we are going, because if you remember, the horse was a requirement for Rostam to be able to go to battle and perform as it was expected of him as a true, powerful warrior. So now the horse is in the picture. So there's nothing preventing Rostam from actually going to war and helping out the Iranians because, I mean, it doesn't matter that they are the protagonists of this. They're losing. They're gravely losing against the Turanians. So we are going to see how Rostam manages to come and assist. Also, should mention that there's no one sitting in the throne at the minute. It's empty. The throne of Iran is empty, so that means chaos, absolute chaos in the land. What do you say, Serapis? Everything's good. Classes are fine, and the next semester we'll teach medieval. Yes, with a lot of improvements thanks to you, Azizam. Thank you so much. I'm just very happy it could be of use for you. So yeah, let's just dive. I can't speak today. I'm really sorry. I can apologize in advance. It's been a day. It's been a day, positively speaking. But even sometimes you have those days in which, despite everything being good, you're still very exhausted because good things are also exhausting. But all good in the hood. I'm just tired. So we are going to see what Zal and Rostam do. And remember, the evil guy in this chapters is Afrazyab, the psychopath. And yes, I'm going to keep on referring to him as such because he is. He's a bloody psychopath. So then Then, from the back of an elephant, Zal, I think, yes. Oh, because, all right, Zal is leading his army, finally, against Afrasiab, because now they have reinforcements. Reinforcements in the shape of one boy, which is Rostam, but reinforcements after all. From the back of an elephant, he, Zal, threw a pebble in a goblet as a sign to mount and gave a shout that could be heard for miles. Because apparently in this family, they all love to shout. It's a way of communicating. I don't know. The din of drums and blare of bugles mingled with the sound of Indian bells and the trumpeting of elephants. The day of judgment seemed to have come to Zabolistan, as if the earth were crying out to its dead. Rise! Rostam led the army, followed by the land's experienced warriors. It was springtime as they set out, and the world was filled with blossoms and flowers. It's actually very interesting because I don't know if you were aware of this, but in the ancient times, in the ancient world and in the medieval world, not every time was wartime. And I explain myself. Not every time was suitable to engage in a battle, suitable for starting a revolution, suitable for starting a conquering campaign. No. Why is that? Because you cannot fight the elements with the sources you have at this moment in history. This is the reason why fighting season normally, because there's always exceptions, and of course depends on which part of the world you live at and how the climate behaves around that area. But mostly, we can state generally, so to speak, generally fighting season, which is a horrible thing to say now that I say it out loud and realizing how awful it sounds, fighting season, bellum season starts in spring. Starts in spring and lasts until, I want to say October, November, when the chill winter actually, when the autumn is slowly but steadily fading away and the frosty bite of winter is coming in place. And Iran is no exception for that. Southern provinces of Iran had a more gentle climate, but still, it was like an established thing. People knew these things. People know that they would stop fighting from X month to Y month, and then they will resume the next time. As I say, this is not written in stone. There's always exceptions. Afrasiab learned of Zal's approach, and from then on he could neither rest nor eat in his entirety. Zizam, now you're scared, aren't you? He led his army toward the river at Rey, where the marshy reeds beds were. The Iranian army left the desert and made for the battlefield, until only 2 parasangs separated the two sides. Remember, a parasang is a way of measuring distance. Zal called a council of his experienced advisors and said to them, "You have seen the world and are wise in its ways. We have drawn up our army here and hope for a favorable outcome. But we are not of one mind as we were." They've been experiencing issues in this army. And this is because the throne lacks a king. Everything is unsure now, and the army has no leader. Even though they say that Zal and Rostam are leading the army, we can say that they're doing that for practical purposes, in the sense that they are indicating the path they are going to take. Yet, remember, there's no one sitting in the throne of Iran, and that means there's no head of state people can follow orders from, and that's an issue. We need someone of royal blood, royal lineage, to take his place on the throne and bind on the belt of authority. Still, we search for a king. A priest has told me of such a king, one who possesses the royal far, and whose good fortune is still young. This is Kaikobad, who is descended from Fereidun. He is an imposing man, wise and just. Then Zal turned to Rostam and said, "Take your mace now and throw back your shoulders. Choose a group of companions and ride quickly to the Alborz mountains. Greet Kaikobad respectfully, but do not delay your return. You must be back here in 2 weeks, so do not rest for any reason along the way. Say to him, the army is asking for you, and it has prepared the real throne in your honor." Quick as the wind, Rostam bound on his belt and set off to fetch Kaikobad. This Qobad is not the same that just passed away a few episodes prior. We were reading about Qobad that sacrificed himself to allow the Iranian army to continue existing, basically. This is not the same Qobad. You see, this is something that happens in the Shāh-nāmeh. There is a lot of names repeated, and that's not due to a lack of innovation, of lack of creativity. No, this is just because there were some names that first resonated good at the time. Second, allowed the performers, remember this is a book that was meant to be read as I am doing now, out loud for a public. This is not meant to be read in silence as we normally read nowadays. No, absolutely not. This is a book to be performed. Also, this is poetry. So this means this book is normally memorized by the special performers. Having the same names gives you a lot of facilities when it comes to deliver your speech in front of an audience. And also because these names are sometimes associated with a particular lineage, if you know what I mean. If the father is named Qobad, maybe the son is named something else, but the grandson is named Qobad as well, and they keep on repeating and repeating the cycle. Also, you associate a name with a faction here. Say, Qaren, Qobad, Nozar, all those names you've heard before were associated with Iran. So they're associated with the good guys. They already have an aura to them. They have people that prompt to think they are the good guys, which they are. And names like Afrasiab and others that I won't spoil for you, those names actually are linked to the bad guys or the bad characters. So just give your audience like an already made message. I do remember these names. They're associated with certain tropes, certain personalities, certain archetypes. And now we're going to meet Qobad, which is apparently, you know how the Shāh-nāmeh pulls out this card so much. Like the throne is empty and it makes you believe that all is lost, all good is lost, and the world is fatally inclined to its destruction. And then out of the blue, someone mentions, oh, but wait, I know of a person of real blood conveniently placed closely, I mean physically close to us, that's absolutely okay with gaining the throne and just putting on the Iranian crown to reign above us. It's like, convenient. That's very, very convenient. On the 8th day, the ivory throne was made ready and the royal crown suspended above it. Qobad seated himself there and placed the jewel crown on his head. Oh, wow, Rostam was quick. The chieftains were gathered, men like Zal and Wu like Qaren, Kherdad, Keshbat, and Barzin, and they scattered jewels over the newly crowned king. He listened to what they had to say about Afrasiab and reviewed the troops. On the following day, the noise of preparation was heard from the royal pavilion and Qobad led his army out. Rostam put on his armor, and the dust he raised made him seem like a maddened elephant. Remember, Rostam is bigger than average, sturdier than average, more powerful than average, than any other human in the army. Yes, including his father, who's raised in the supernatural. Yes. Rostam is in all ways exceptional. Except for he's not that smart. But we'll get there. She's not the sharpest tool in the box. The ranks of the Persian army marched to war, ready for bloodshed. One wing was led by Mehrab, the king of Kabul. Do you remember Mehrab? It's actually Zal's father-in-law. And the other by Zandom. Qaren was in the center together with Keshbat, the breaker of armies, and Zal followed them with Qobad. And it was as if there were fire on the one side of him, wind on the other. That's actually a very poetic and beautiful image. In front of the troops, the Qabiani banner floated, dyeing the world scarlet, yellow, and purple, like a ship lifted on a wave above the Sea of China. The plains and mountain slopes were a mass of shields, and swords glittered like torches. From end to end, the world was like a sea of pitch over which twinkled 100,000 candles. You would think the sun would lose its way with the squeal of trumpets and din of the army. Let me just pause for a moment because you're going to hear, I think this is the first time we come across such a character. But it's possible that if we keep on reading, this guy something resonates with you. And why is that? because Kai is actually the starting of the word Kayanid. The Kayanids are a dynasty. Which dynasty? The dynasty that's been reigning from, I would say properly, from Kayumars until now. All descendants of Fereidun, Tahmuras, all that jazz. Kai is a way of saying king. So it's very common from now on that you see Kai Kobad. That means the king Kobad. Is a title, is a way of addressing a person of royal importance. That's what it is. Yeah, that was it. Once battle was joined, because the Kayanids have any historical basis, they do not have historical basis as such. You need to understand that this is a book that gathers legend and mythological times. There were Kayanids in the Zoroastrian sources, but we're not that sure if they were real or not. Many of them belong to legends, yet the word Kai is a word that happens in the sources, and we've seen it, and it's a way of addressing a person of importance, a chieftain, a leader of some sorts. So, but still, I emphasize the era. In the mythological era, there were no problems because it can be delimited quite well, but in this heroic era, history and mythology, they merge quite a lot, and none of the Kayanids have a historical basis. There are some scholars, however, that believe that the Kayanids are actually a way of mentioning the Achaemenids. I don't have the sources nor the knowledge to confirm or deny that this is true. I actually don't know myself. I've heard of this theory. It could be possible, but it also could not be possible because the Achaemenids were not that well known at the time. Not really. No, there was not a lot of knowledge about the Achaemenids. I was going to say the Kayanids. There was not as much knowledge of the Achaemenids as it was of the Sassanids. So I wouldn't go for it straightforwardly. Like, I wouldn't just state, yes, for sure, they had historical basis. No. Everything behind it has historical basis, of course. Everything behind this poem has either literary, mythological, or historical background. Every single thing. But sometimes legends have stronger power than reality. Does the evidence suggest Kayanid is a generic term for leader? Not Kayanid, but Kai, the word Kai. This is the reason why we have here a person called Kai Obad, and we'll have Kai Kavuz. And let me just show you how many do we have here. Oh yeah, and Kai Khosrow, Kai Obad, Kai Kavuz, all of those just indicate leadership or just sovereignty. So the battle is joined, all the armies are prepared. It's really fun to me to reading this part because the Iranians have no army whatsoever. According to what the Shāh-nāmeh just said, like they've been destroyed, almost eradicated from the surface of Earth. Then Rostam just comes into battle and everything's quiet. It's all good. He's renewed the forces. New Iranian soldiers have like respawned from Earth or something like that. And yeah, so now we're ready for war apparently. So once the battle was joined, Karen was involved in every charge. Sometimes riding to the left, sometimes to the right, everywhere, eager for bloodshed. Remember that Karen is still a bit salty with the Turanians because they basically assassinated his older brother. When Rostam saw how he fought, he went to his father and said, "Tell me, what position the Evil Afrasiab keeps during battle? What does he wear? Where does his banner flutter above the troops? Is that shining purple banner his? I will grasp him by the belt today and drag him down from his saddle." Then Zol answered, "Listen to me, my son. Look after yourself today. That Turk is a fire-breathing dragon in combat, a cloud that rains down disaster. His banner is black, as is his armor. His arms are encased in iron, and his helmet is of iron. All the surface of his iron armor is chased with gold, and his black banner is affixed to his helmet. Keep yourself safe from him. because he is a brave man and fortune favors him with victory. This is a very powerful image because Afrasiab goes into battle with a full coverage armor, black iron, and on top of it is chased with gold, which is a very impressive image. And the banner is actually attached to his helmet, so that gives away a little bit his position all the time, but that is what Rostam wants to know. Rostam wants to identify the person, so he would be able to chase him and attack him. Rostam then said, "Don't trouble your soul about me, father. The world's creator is my ally, and my heart, my sword, and my arm are my refuge." This is giving hints about Rostam's personality, because even, how to say this softly and not judgmentally, he's not one for advice. The rare occasions he actually listens to someone, that lasts for very, very, very little. Because part of his personality is built up upon this idea of I know better. Or as he just said, God is with me, therefore that makes me bloody invincible and I can endure every obstacle in my way. Which is a great mindset, but still a little bit cocky and braggy. So it's not something I would recommend to have in life generally. So if you are given advice, please just consider thinking about it. It's just 2 minutes. 2 minutes of your time. That's not much. Literally, it's not that much. So, then as the trumpets sounded, Rostam urged his brazen-hoofed Raksh forward, and when Afrasiab caught sight of him, he paused in wonder at this immature youth. Even Afrasiab, who is the biggest psychopath in the entire land, even him is intelligent enough to put 2 and 2 together and to identify Rostam as an immature person. So like, where do you think you're going, Azizam? He said to his warriors, "Who's that dragon who's escaped from his bond? Who is he? I don't know his name." And then one of his men replied, "That is Zal's son. Can you see that he has come here with Sam's mace? He's young and eager to win a name for himself." Because remember, Rostam has not been actually in any combat yet, and all the jazz. I think I'm gonna turn off the light in here a little bit. Yeah, much better. Where was I? Oh yeah. Like a vessel lifted high on a wave, Afrasiab went ahead of his army, and when Rostam saw him, he gripped his tights against Raksh and lifted his heavy mace to his shoulders. As he drew level with Afrasiab, he brought his mace crashing down on the king's saddle, then reached out and grasped at his belt, lifting him from his leopard skin saddle. He wanted to take him back to Kobad as a trophy. That's what people is to you, Rostam, isn't it? He wanted to take him back to Kobad as a trophy from his first day of battle, but his strength and the weight of Afrasiab between them were too much for the belt, which split, so that Afrasiab's head lay in the dirt, and his cavalry quickly gathered about him and hit him in the dust they sent up. When the king slipped out of his grasp like this, Rostam bit the back of his hand in anger. "Why," he said, "why didn't I tuck him under my arm instead of hanging on to his belt?" So this is actually super interesting for me. This says another trait of Rostam's personality. He realizes he's doing something reckless. Occasionally. Is the master pressed weapon of choice for these times? Yes, that is a very good observation. Yes. I will explain Rostam's personality and I will go back to you with the mace. So, Rostam is just too eager. He's too impatient. He just wants what he wants and wants it now. In the sense that he wants to have, as the soldier said, to win a name for himself. He wants to be recognized as a warrior because until now, all that's left is just words. He's said to be strong, he's said to be legendary, but he hasn't still done a thing. Not a single one. So he wants to prove himself so badly that he acts poorly and recklessly. And as a consequence of that, he loses the same king of the Turanians. He could have won all this thing if he only had thought the thing a little bit through. Pause for an instant, give it a minute or two to draw a strategy, like a basic strategy, and then follow it up. But he doesn't. He just marches forward. He just presses on rush to charge. And then, because he's not calculating his own strength and the weight of Afrasiab's iron armor, the plan does not work out for him. And he realizes that's the thing. He actually knows. He knows he's acted poorly. But, thinking what for. And yes, Uloko, the mace is a weapon of choice to determine prowess, power, a distinguished position in society, if you may. So yeah, that's exactly what it is. Normally these maces are topped with the head of an animal, the most popular one being an ox or a cow. This is the same weapon that Feridun had, that Jamshid had. Sam also had one. So as you see, all the people that occupy relevant positions in the hierarchy of Iran, they wield maces, and actually they prefer the mace to a sword, because swords are not that multifaceted, if you know what I mean. If you want to drag down someone from their horse, a mace is much more effective than a sword, like much more effective. All right. Bells rang out from the elephants' backs, and the din of drums could be heard for miles. When they brought the good news to Qobad that Rostam had broken the center of the Turks' army, they said, when Rostam reached the Turkish king, his black banner disappeared. Rostam grasped him by his belt and flung him down to the ground, so that a cry of consternation went up from the Turanians. Everyone's very excited. Maybe the sword doesn't give the same satisfaction of smashing. I truly believe that's the thing. One of the things, at least. Yeah, everyone's very excited that Rostam has displayed all his abilities. Even, alright, he has not captured the king of the Turanians, but still, he's performed quite good. It was only his first day and his first battle. For crying out loud, he's performed much better than I have performed in many different situations in my entire life. So kudos for Rostam. Yeah, cheers to Rostam for doing what he was expected to, basically. Qobad sprang to his feet, and his army surged forward like a sea whipped by the wind. Everywhere was a sound of weapons clashing, the glitter of daggers, the shock of wood against armor. Protected by the golden helmets and golden shields, men's heads became dazed by the shock and din of blows. It was as if a cloud had rained vermilion down by magic, staining the earth with red dye. That's blood, by the way. Because they are excited and uplifted by Rostam's performance, the Iranians now are performing a massacre. Because that's what we want from the Book of Kings. One day I said this, I've mentioned this before, if you actually squeeze this book, there's two liquids that come from it. One is blood and the other one is tears. Because this is a very, very sad book. I think I've proven that well enough. But if you don't believe that yet, stick around. We'll see it. 1,160 brave warriors were killed at a stroke, and the Turanians fled before the Iranians, retreating to Damghan. From there, they made their way to the Oxus, sick at heart and weary, filled with rumors and reproaches. Their armor shattered and their belts loosened, unhurled by trumpets of drums, bereft all their strength. So they lost, and they are withdrawing. From the riverbank, Afrasiab went to his father in despair, his tongue filled with words. Remember, if Afrasiab is a psychopath, Pashang is just... wow, I don't even have a good word for this person. I might have one or two words for Afrasiab, but But not for these guys. Like, absolutely not. I hate Pashang. Afrasiab said, "Exalted king, you sinned when you looked for vengeance in this way. First, no one in the past ever saw great kings break their word. And Iraj's seed has not been eradicated from the land, and no antidote has been found for his poison. When one goes, another takes his place, and the world will not remain without a leader. Obad has come forward and placed a crown on his head and has opened up a new way to warfare. And a horseman has appeared of Sam's race. Zal named him Rostam. He came forward like a hideous monster, and the ground seemed scorched by his breath. He attacked everywhere, striking with his sword and mace. The air was filled with the sound of his mace blows, and my soul was not worth of a fistful of dirt before his might. He shattered our army, and no one in the world had ever seen such a wonder. He caught sight of my banner and brought his mace down on my leopard skin saddle. Then he grasped at my belt and lifted me up, as if I weighed no more than a mosquito. My belt split, and I fell from his grasp on the ground, and my men dragged me away from him. I see no alternative to making peace, because your army cannot withstand his onslaught. The lands which Fereydun bestowed on Tur have been given to me, and you should renounce this ancient longing for vengeance. You know that being told about something is not the same as seeing it. Something is always lacking when you only hear about a subject. War with Iran seemed like a game to you. But this has proven to be a hard game for your army to play. Consider how many golden helmets and golden shields, how many Arab horses with golden bridles, how many Indian swords with golden scabbards, and how many famous warriors Qobad has ruined. And worse than this, your name, your reputation, which can never be restored, have been destroyed. Don't think of past resentments. Try to be reconciled with Qobad if you decide on any other course of action. Armies will converge on you from 4 directions. From one side, Rostam, a blazing sun against whom there is no defense, will attack. From another, Karen, who has never looked on defeat. From a third, Keshbad, with his golden diadem, who has attacked Amol. And from a fourth, Mehrab, the lord of Kabul, who leads Zal's armies. I call Afrasiab a psychopath, but I have to say that at this time he acknowledges quite good he's been defeated, and he goes to his father, whom we remember denied audience for the little prince when he was defeated the first time. But now Afrasiab comes to him, defeated, exhausted, tired of this futile war between Iran and Turan, and just lists a very good bunch of reasons for his father to sign the peace, because, quoting from him, there is no meaning, there's no sense in seeking vengeance anymore, because the Iranian kings seem to be renewed every single time they kill the last one. You kill an Iranian king and another one appears, and then another, and then another, and they renew forces and they muster a new army and they charge forward, while the Turanians seem not to have that respawn superpower. Not yet, at least. And in this very moment, Afrasiab knows that if they keep on fighting, having Rostam to the other side, they're going to lose. Inevitably, they're going to be just swept from the surface of the world. And he doesn't want that. If you remember, they already signed a treaties of peace. There was a peace agreement a couple of chapters ago, and what they agreed upon was giving the lands of Tur. Do you remember Tur? One of Feridun kids. The lands that had rightfully belonged to Tur once, they were given to Turanians as part of the agreement to stop the war. And that's just it. Afrasiab just doesn't want more. Not at all. There's a remarkably sound grasp of geopolitics for a mythological tale in it. I told you this is the best book ever written. So Pashang, the king of the Turanians, filled with tears as he listened in silence to his son's words, told the scribe to bring paper and ink made from musk. The calligraphy of the letter this man wrote was so beautiful that it was worthy of a master, and it was decorated with colors and images. Pashang dictated, "In the name of the Lord of the sun and moon, who has bestowed authority on us, may his blessings be on the soul of Fereydun, who is the warp and weft of our ancestry. If, in his ambition for the crown and throne, Tur acted evilly toward Iraj, and there is much to be said about this, their quarrel must now be put to rest. Anusher has taken revenge from what happened to Iraj, and Fereydun showed us the true way when he divided the land into separate realms. We should commit our hearts to this division and not ignore the customs and wisdom of our ancestors." At that time, Tur's imperial tents were pitched in Transoxiana, and the river Oxus marked the border. Iraj did not cover this area. He was given the land of Iran by Fereydun. If we break this agreement and go to war, we make life hard for ourselves. Don't you? Sorry. We wound ourselves with our own swords and provoke God's wrath, so that we shall inherit nothing, neither in this world nor the world to come. We should respect the division that Fereydun made between Salm, Tur, and Iraj, and renounce all thoughts of vengeance, for these lands are not worth the disasters we have brought on ourselves. At least you're taking the blame of something. Our heads have grown as white as snow, and the ground has been dyed vermilion with cyanide blood. But in the end, a man owns only the earth in which he lies. 5 cubits of ground are all we inherit. Linen covers us, and we lie in the grave. See how they evoke this death atmosphere? Not as in deadly / terrifying death, but just the peaceful, the tranquility of passing away. Whenever they want to recover sense, am I explaining myself? It's just whenever they want to call to peace, when they want to call to tranquility, to calm, they remind themselves that these worlds is futile, and the only existence that's worth is the next one, the one we are going to live in the next world with our immortal selves, because this world we inhabit is futile and it's going to be finished at some point. And when we finish our existence here, nothing is going to be left, and all that you possess in this life will matter nothing, because you're going to lose it. You're going to see yourself in front of your destiny, in front of God in this case, and you're going to be given passage to the next life, depending on how you behave. So do not go accumulating things. Do not worry or preoccupy yourself with mundane activities, but just remember that our existence here is temporary. It only took thousands and thousands of corpses for Pashang to realize that maybe war was not the solution. Maybe, perhaps, Shoyad. Friendly family reminder of the futility of war. Exactly. They do this every single time. Every single time, I swear. They do it. And I'm just like, I'm not saying I disagree with you. War is horrible. But, again, thousands of dead bodies, thousands of them, for you to realize that perhaps this was not the smartest choice. Anyway, the letter continues, and Pashang finishes as such. Ambition's door leads to sorrow and suffering, and our hearts remain heavy while we lead And I'm gonna start all over again because I was not reading that sentence properly. Ambition's door leads to sorrow and suffering, and our hearts remain heavy while we live in the fleeting world. If Kaikobad will accept our terms, if his wise mind will incline to justice, none of our men will think even in their dreams of crossing the Oxus, and the Iranians will not come here, except to bring greetings and a message of peace. In this way, our two countries will live prosperously and happily. Spoiler alert. They do not keep their word. They do cross the Oxus, and it's not for bringing and delivering gifts or greetings or whatsoever. They do cross the Oxus. There's war again, but you shall see that in coming episodes. End of the ASMR part. The king sealed the letter and dispatched a detachment of men to take it to Kaikobad. The messengers handed over the letter and also spoke at length. Kaikobad answered, "We did not attack first." This is like a letter when, if you have siblings, when you're fighting between each other and your mom and dad comes to scold you and tell you off. And the first thing you say is, "I didn't start it." Like, we didn't start a fire. It was always burning since the world's beginning. Like, wasn't me. So this is actually a very poor excuse for a king, but we did not attack first. It was Tur who committed the first crime by destroying Iraj. That was like a solid 100 years ago, but you know what? People in this book are very resentful. And in our own time, Afrasiab crossed the Oxus and invaded Iran, which is true, I had to give it to him. You have heard what he did to King Nozar, so that even the beasts of the field grieved for him. That was, yeah. And the way he acted with the wise Agriras was not worthy of a chivalrous man. Oh my God, Agriras, you deserved much better. If you regret these evil acts and will renew our treaties, I harbor no ambitions or desire for revenge, since I am prepared to leave this fleeting world. I grant you your side of the Oxus in the hopes that Afrasiab will be content with this. And he wrote out a new treaty, planting a tree in the garden of greatness. But Rostam, Azizam, shut up. Rostam said to him, "Your Majesty, do not look for reconciliation in a place of war." What are you doing, Rostam, my dear? Shut the front door. Peace is not what they deserve. Azizam, if you only think for a moment. Shut it. Peace is not what they deserve. Let them see what I can do with my mace in their land. Dude. The king replied, "I have never seen anything better than justice. Pashang is Feridun's grandson, and he and his son have had enough of warfare. A wise man should not seek to be underhanded or unjust. I have written a charter on silk granting you suzerainty over Zabolistan, as far as the Sea of Sind. May you wear the crown and sit on the throne there, illuminating the world. Give Kabul to Mehrab, but keep your spare points dipped in poison. For wherever there is a kingdom, there is warfare, however great the realm might be." He placed a golden crown on Rostam's head and a golden belt about his waist, as a sign that he gave these territories to him. So Zal is not king anymore. Good. Rostam kissed the ground before him. Then Qobat said, "May the throne never be without Zal. The world is not worth one of his hairs, as he serves to remind us of the great men of the past." This is actually a very confusing thing because, yeah, he just gave the throne to Rostam, but Zal still king of Zabulistan, and then Kabul is supposed to be of Zal, but then Mehrab is reigning over there. It's the geopolitics of the Shāh-nāmeh are confusing. And he sent Zal clothes of royal cloth, of gold, and a belt and a crown set with rubies and turquoises. That must have been so beautiful. On 5 elephants, they placed howdahs set with turquoises that glittered more splendidly than the waters of the Nile, and wrapped the howdahs in cloth of gold. If you don't know what a howdah is, that's a structure that goes up the elephant's back. That little structure that resembles a house or a palanquin, that is. That's it. Qobat sends all tresses the like of which no man had ever seen, with the message, I wish to send you a most splendid present. And if I live a long life, I will see that you want for nothing in this world. He distributed suitable gifts to Qaren, Keshbad, Barazin, Kharrat, and Pulad, and these included gold and silver coins, swords, shields, crowns, and belts. Then Qobat set out for Pars, where the key to all his treasures lay. His palace, was at Estakhr, where the Khayanate kings ruled in glory. The world paid him homage as he ascended to the throne, ruling with wisdom and splendor and according to custom. He said to his nobles, from end to end, the world is mine. And if an elephant fights with a mosquito, this is a breach of justice and faith. I want nothing but righteousness in the world, because to provoke God's anger will bring want to our land. Ease comes from effort, and wherever there is water on earth, there is my treasure. The cities and armies are mine, and my kingdom depends on the army. Live safely, protected by the Lord of the world. Be wise and live at peace. May those who have wealth enjoy it and share it, and be grateful to me that I enable them to do this. And whoever is hungry and cannot feed himself by his labor, my court will be his pasture, and I will welcome all who come to me. Then he remembered the example of past heroes and made the world flourish with his justice and generosity. In this way he lived at peace for 100 years. What kings have there been in the world who can compare with him? Well, actually, that is a very poor question, Shāh-nāmeh, because Feridun lived for a solid 1,500 years. Zahak lived for more than 1,000 years. Hoshang, it was 700. Jamshid was close to 1,000. And all that jazz. So maybe don't be so baroque in your questions. No need for this kind of exaggeration, because actually there's a lot of people who's outlived Qobat. Just saying. He had 4 wise sons. The first was Kavuz, the second Arash, the third Pashin, and the fourth Ashkas. Then when he had reigned for 100 years, his strength began to wane. He knew that death was near, and that the green leaves of his life had withered. He summoned Kavuz and spoke to him of justice and generosity. He said, I am ready for my last journey. Lower my coffin into the ground and take your place on the throne. This throne that passes from us before we know, and whose servants are without wisdom. I feel I am still that man who came so happily with his companions from the Alborz mountains. If you rule justly and righteously, you will be on a journey to the heavens, and if greed and ambition snare your mind, you will be unsheathing a dark sword that will be used against you. He finished speaking and then departed from the splendid world, exchanging his palace for a coffin. This is the world's way. This is the way which raises us from the dust and disperses us on the wind. And this is where we are going to stop for today. I know it's been a bit chaotic because those episodes that are focused on war there's a lot of characters coming and going, a lot of characters that appear mentioned maybe once or twice, but they perform quite an active role. Then there's these beautiful speeches, and there is this sentimental moments and these moving scenes between fathers and sons and soldiers remembering themselves. Well, you know what, maybe we should appreciate life and thank God that we are in this existence, because we are going to be departing this world possibly soon, sooner than we expect. And but yeah, that's been our reading for the day. Thank you so much, Bacha, for tuning in with me. That's been my biggest pleasure sharing this with you. And I want to remind you that this Sunday is actually the date is, I think it's, yeah, this Sunday is Nowruz, which is the Iranian New Year, and we are going to be celebrating it on Monday on Tuesday, next Tuesday, the 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. There might be someone with me. I'm not sure, it depends on some schedule things, but there might be someone with me to celebrate Nowruz, and I'm very excited about that. Expect, like, for the Iranian New Year, yes, to Nowruz, expect a lot of pictures of my Nowruz table scattered through my social media. That's just a reality, that is going to happen. Oh yeah, thank you so much for tuning in with me. I hope you enjoyed this reading of the Book of Kings. Special thanks to my patrons, especially those of Tier Murshid and Ashdod. If you want to support me on Patreon, you actually contribute to these streams continuing, and you get access to behind the scenes, extra content, and a lot of extra bits and bobs. Thank you so much, Bacha, for joining me for the afternoon. I hope you have a wonderful week, and remember, create, explore, and have tons of fun. Until I see you next time, which will be Nowruz, I say Khuda Hafiz.